Hello, and welcome to episode 41 of Design Curious Podcast. I'm your host and mentor, Rebecca Ward. Today on the podcast, we are going to get some understanding around personality types, and all the tests that can help you understand yourself, as well as your friends and the people you influence and your clients, which is a really important part of business. And even if you're in your career and you're going to work for someone else, it really comes into play with dealing with clients. So we'll get into that in a little bit. And I wanted to remind you that I have those free downloads for you if you want to find out more about the career and get a little more information to get you started. I have the 3 things I wish I had known before I started my career in interior design, as well as the roadmap to interior design. So if you need either of those, you can find those in the show notes, as well as information about My Design Mentor, which is my membership group, and I'd love to see you in there. Also, I'm excited to share a special offer with interior design brand strategist Erica Soret, who you remember from episode 38, How Storytelling and Brand Marketing Will Level Up Your Interior Design Career. Erica has just launched a new course called the Brand Storytelling Masterclass on Teachable, and it's for my audience, you guys. She made a great offer to go back and listen to that episode if you haven't already and leave a review on my Apple Podcast or Podchaser platform, and then take a screenshot of that and email it to me, podcast@ourwarddesign, or you can tag me on Instagram if you post it there. Then she'll send you a coupon to take her masterclass for free. The course is designed to be short and easy to complete. You'll learn how to write compelling stories for your brand in an easy-to-implement, step-by-step masterclass format designed to get you crafting unforgettable brand narratives in just a few short hours. By the end of this course, you'll have created your own taglines, brand scripts, and content matrix, allowing you to easily generate 20-plus unique content and topics, and you can use those for social media, blog posts, and email campaigns. She's super excited about it and offering this for a very limited time. So we're just going to promote it for the month of June. So if you're interested, follow the course link in my show notes. And if you'd like to take it for free in exchange for the review of our episode, please do not hesitate to let me know once you posted it. So like I said, screenshot that and email me, or post it on Instagram and tag us so that you can get your code for taking this brand storytelling masterclass for free. All right. Let's get into today's episode about understanding personalities, because I know you're a curious person like me, or else you wouldn't be here on the Design Curious podcast. You're now listening to Design Curious, a place where you, creative one, are here to learn about what it really is like to be an interior designer. And I'm your host and mentor, Rebecca Ward. If you're worried about how to succeed in a creative career, if you're ready to learn your next steps to become an interior designer, and if you want the satisfaction of doing something you love every day, you are in the right place. Grab a coffee, a notebook, and let's dig into today's episode. All right, so let's get into all the different personality types. And before we can even talk about understanding that, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about all the different types of categorizations and different tests that you can take to identify what your personality type is, and perhaps your client and other people in your life that you might be working with, or tradespeople. And then these are tools to help you understand them better, to communicate better with other people, and just improve your relationships. Knowledge is important, so the more you know, the better you can do. And I think when it comes to personalities, that's also true. So I'll kind of take you through my journey of being exposed to different personality testing types. The first one I was exposed to was the Myers-Briggs test, and that's something that most people are familiar with. It's categorized in 16 different personalities, and you'll be a combination of 4 different letters. So for example, my Myers-Briggs is INFP, which means that I'm introverted, intuitive, feeling, and prospecting in my approach to relationships. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So Myers-Briggs identifies which one of these combinations that you are based on the test that you can take. And there's a website for that called 16personalities.com that makes it pretty easy to do. So even though you might get categorized as an official personality type, I also want to say that doesn't mean that this will never change. Like sometimes you might take it when you're young, you might take it when you're older, and you'll find that you're different because people do change over time. And if you're working to improve yourself or just develop yourself in other ways, you might find yourself going from introverted to extroverted or vice versa, or feeling, thinking, so there might be changes that happen in your life. Doesn't mean that you're pegged into this hole forever, but it does give you a lot of content to explore to help understand yourself better. And when you understand yourself better, then you can help other people interact with you better. And that's the way I view it. So the 16 letters would be, the first category would be either I or E for introverted or extroverted, N or S for intuitive versus observant or sensory, T or F for thinking or feeling, and J or P for judging or prospecting. So there's an easy online quiz, like I said, at 16personalities.com that you can take and kind of find out what yours is. But I find that the Myers-Briggs is probably one of the most well-known personality types, and there's some books on it you can read if you're really into that. So yeah, I've included in my bio and my staff's bio as well our Myers-Briggs personality type, which was actually a key thing for a client who reached out to us and said that she was really drawn to our website and to working with us because we had included our Myers-Briggs results on our bios, and that she was also the same as mine, and that just helped her to have a bond with us already before we met. So I thought that was really interesting. So then the next personality categorization that I really explored after Myers-Briggs was the Enneagram. So the Enneagram you can probably find on Pinterest or Instagram. There's a lot of great content there to explore it. And that is 9 different personality types that have been categorized. And they'll say that, each of us has some percentage of these 9 different personalities within each of us, but at different times, some will present themselves stronger than others. So we also include this test result on our bio. And so mine is a 9 Enneagram. There's a book that I would recommend for really exploring the Enneagram, and that is called The Road Back to You. And I'll include a link for that in the show notes. So you can explore what a type 1 is, type 9, and then there's also a book about the relationships of those together. So I find that for me, the Enneagram is a really easy thing to identify in other people, just because I've explored it so much that I feel like it's an easier one for me to identify. Once I see someone's personality, I'm like, oh, okay, you're probably a 7, or you're an 8 or a 6 or something like that. And then that just helps me to understand how that person moves around their day and how they like to communicate. And it's not that I really try to put people in a box, but it is helpful to understand people's personalities. So the next personality testing that I went through was the DISC assessment, and I mentioned that before, and I hope to have the coach that took me through the DISC assessment on the podcast sometime in the future to talk about it and about personalities and how important it is to understand yourself and understand other people as you're doing business relations. And so the DISC stands for, or it's the letters D, I, S, and C. And so within this, you'll have 4 different personalities that have a different percentage of each of these letters, though. And so D is for dominance, the I is for influence, S is for steadiness, and C is for conscientiousness. And so you'll either be a high or a low on the scale of these different aspects. And these high or lows might change as you're exposed to more stressful situations, or as you're the way that you perceive yourself versus how other people see you. So it's really interesting. And so now I do a kind of a standard practice in my business when we onboard a client of doing an internal assessment of what I think my client's DISC personality is, so I know how to speak to them. Because say they're a high D, well, they really want to be direct and to the point, and they don't want a lot of fluff in their communication. So instead of saying in an email like, hi, how are you? I hope your day's going really well. The sun is shining, the birds are singing, blah, 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 blah. A D really wants to be like, hi, here are the things that we worked on this week. Boom, 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 boom. Whereas maybe an I or an S might want some more of that softness of gradually getting into the point. So really understanding how the client likes to be spoken to and how they like to communicate is going to be really key for when you're doing a presentation and trying to sell your design to them, or even just communicating throughout the project. Now, I do see that the DISC assessment correlates very highly with the 4 temperament assessments, which is another categorization is exposed to. Actually, my mom did do some research on this I remember when I was young, she had a book and would talk about these different temperaments, but it's actually based on ancient Greek understanding of the body fluids. And they think that if you had a high amount of certain body fluid, then it would affect your personality. Those 4 different personality types would be choleric, sanguine, phlegmatic, and melancholy. And so those actually match up to the DISC assessment, the DISC. So if you know one, you can kind of know the other one better. But so you might have a preference that one speaks to you more than the other. And so you can explore both of those as well. So that's kind of a quick rundown of the basic categorization of personality types that people will commonly ascribe to. And like I said, you can go see this on my website, which ones I am and my team. And we also included in there for fun what our Hogwarts house is. And so, there's a million quizzes you can take online to see what's your, if you were one of the friends from the TV show, which friend would you be, so things like that. But Harry Potter does have a website you can go to and get sorted into your Hogwarts house. It's really based on your personality type. And so we included on there Hogwarts house. And sometimes people will mention that too when we're meeting. And I think that's really funny. So yeah, we actually have embraced this because, growth and knowledge are part of our core values. And so we think that it's really important for us to know ourselves, for our clients to know themselves, so that we can really, both of us, work together to create the best design that they want to live in. We do like to have this kind of personal touch on our website to kind of see who's paying attention, who it speaks to, and it actually helps us understand the client a little better too, whether they appreciate the personality types and get to know themselves and other people. So now that we've kind of gone over a little bit of background on the personality types, I'm going to shift over to a book that I think is probably the one that everyone should read, especially if they're running a business or in a position of leadership. And then that book is the classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And it's a really, really well-known book, fairly quick read. And I'm just going to give you a quick synopsis of that book, which I actually found, and I'll leave a reference to this, where it's just a brief summary of what the book is and the main points of the book. And I will highlight a few of those here just to know for when you're dealing with your clients. And so one of the things that you're going to want to be doing when you're dealing with clients is that you want them to like you. And this might be one of the things I'll just say that is why people might not be cut out for residential design, because you have to do a lot of interpersonal communication. You have to basically hold the client's hand through the process, and you're getting to know them, getting to know their personality, getting to know what they like, how they live, what their vacations are, their hobbies, personal details. And some designers just don't want to do that. They don't want to get to know their clients' personal details. I'm a very curious person naturally, like I said, and I know you are too, because this podcast is called Design Curious, and you wouldn't be here if you weren't curious about the career. So given that, I will treat this going forward as though you were like me and you want to get to know other people. So if you don't really like communicating with people and really holding their hand, maybe residential design is not for you. But as you're getting into the projects, you want to be genuinely interested in your clients. So you're going to smile a lot when you're meeting them for the first time, and you're even going to smile on phone conversations because that really comes across. And you want to remember the person's name. So sometimes this totally goes in and out my ear. So that's why I like to record my first initial consultations, because sometimes that's the point where we get into the house and might introduce their husband or their dog, cat, kids, and all these names. And we might not get them all written down in time for people who are walking in around, but it is really great to be able to reference those names later in your follow-ups and in your communications, that you are listening to the client, and names are really important. There is no more lovely sound to a person than their own name. So using their name often is a good way to communicate with people to get them to like you. And you want to make sure you get it right. And so that would really endear the person to you. So using their name over and over in the initial consultation, just so that you're understanding that you know their name, and using it in the presentation to communicate would be good also. So I would encourage you to do that. You want to make sure that you're a good listener and you're encouraging them to talk about themselves. So it's not a hard part for a designer, because I think you're coming into their home, and the whole purpose of the initial consult is to get them to tell you everything that they're willing to share about themselves, so you can get a full picture of who this person is and what their interests are and their personality and what it is they need you there for, how you're going to design their project based on what they're telling you. So you're really wanting them to tell you more and more and more, and you're asking questions and follow-up questions, and they're telling you about their interests, and maybe they're saying that they just got back from a vacation in Hawaii and they want to go to Europe. And so you might have also gone to Europe, and so you can find points where you can relate to them. And oftentimes it's not going to be difficult, because typically your ideal client is very relatable to yourself. You are your ideal client often. And so I know that's true for me, because I work with a lot of busy families. I understand what it's like to have kids and pets and dogs and running around everywhere. And so I can speak their lingo, and I understand all the needs, like the kids' rooms, they all look the same. So it's often great to have relatable points that you can bring up with the client to, again, ensure that you're having good communication with them and they like you. Another recommendation from the book is that you want others to feel important, and that you want to sincerely point out ways that they're important to you as a client, that even though you're there as the prize and the expert, but they are critical for you to be able to do that thing, to be able to design the space and create a space for them to improve life. So it means that the client is really important to you, and you want them to feel that in your communication. So when it comes to the presentation, you're going to want to win people over to your way of thinking, because obviously you're selling the presentation, you're selling your design to them, but you want to do it in a way that is authentic and you're not arguing with the client. And so you're going to show respect to the client if something comes up that they don't like. Instead of saying, oh, you're wrong, I'm the expert, you just need to do what I'd say, I'm the designer. No, you're going to want to have a conversation with them that makes them feel heard. And even if you disagree with them, you're bringing up points calmly and kindly that are important, and it's important that they can express their thoughts, and perhaps you want to ask them more questions to understand why they're hesitant. A particular item that you designed, maybe it's a fabric on a chair, and you want to know that actually that particular fabric reminds them of some experience they had in their grandma's house or something negative in the past, and that you would never realize they had that, but they might actually now just becoming aware that, oh, this fabric actually reminds me of my grandma, and I don't really want that in my house. So having a conversation about that helps the client feel heard instead of shutting them down immediately with that negativity. Another important thing in the presentation is that you want them to say yes as often to the ideas that you're presenting as often as they can. So if you have something easy up front, like you say, here's your front door and here's the arrangement of the living room, and this flows really well, don't you agree? And they say yes. And so they go into the kitchen and look at this nice doorway into the kitchen. It's expanded, and don't you think that's a great idea? Yes. So you're looking for them to agree with you along the way, so it's easier for them to agree when you reach to maybe more creative ideas that you're trying to promote that you're not sure that they're going to go for, but they've already been in the habit of saying yes to you. So that this would be a great way for them to be open to what you have to say. And of course, you're going to be presenting with a smile, and you're going to be friendly. Another thing that comes up, I find that clients like to do and that I like to let them do is that they need to take ownership of at least one portion of the job or of the project design. So the way I work with the design process, I don't do a check-in halfway through in the design to see if the client likes the direction. Instead, we do all of our gathering information of what we think they like at the very beginning. We design it, and then we present it to them. So they don't get to see the design until the presentation, and then we can make adjustments. And so we have it presented as a complete and final product to the client, which is the best way to show them to see how it all comes together. But usually and invariably, they want to take some kind of ownership of the project, which is fine. They haven't really had any participation in the design up to this point for telling, besides telling what they liked at the very beginning. So usually there's a little something that they want to change, and often it's like a throw pillow or finial on the hardware. So we can kind of anticipate these things, and oftentimes we'll pick some options and have them ready to show them. They're like, oh, I'm not sure I love that pillow. Maybe we can explore something else. And so we'll say, well, do you like this one or this one? And they'll be like, oh yeah, I like that one. And so then they've actually been able to make a decision and input on that design. And so that really helps them to take ownership of the project, and that they feel like they've been a part of it, even though they weren't going through the whole design process with you. At the end, they're able to say yes or no and make some changes and really take ownership. And I think that's an important part for the client to really sign off on the design. It's also interesting to see how the different personalities respond to the presentations. Some people get really emotional. I've had clients cry through the presentation just because it's so beautiful and they can envision themselves living in this design already, and they just are so happy to see it. Other people are wanting to know a lot of the details. I've had a presentation where they, as we were walking through, after we did, the initial showing everything, then they wanted to walk through again and write down every single dimension for every single piece of furniture, just because they took comfort in knowing exactly what that design or what those sizes were. So that I don't know if they were going to go back home and tape it out on the floor, but they're probably a high C on that scale on the DISC assessment, because they really need to know those details and fine tune that. So yeah, you'll see the different personalities come across. And so we try to tailor our presentations also for these different personalities, whether we just need to get to the point and kind of show them all here's the design, here's how much it costs, say yes or no, or if we really want to use more flowery verbiage to kind of take them through and say, imagine yourself walking through this doorway into your nook, and here's where you have coffee in the morning and the sun's coming through. And so, you'll understand by the time you get to the presentation how your client likes to be spoken to and how they like to communicate. And so by this time, you should really be able to fine tune your presentation to accommodate that. And so that's really important to know how your client might react to your presentation. And then even the end of the project, when it all comes together, you'll have different reactions as well. Some clients might be like, yeah, looks great. I love it. Thanks. You did a great job. And others are just falling on the floor fainting because they love it so much. So, this is not rocket science. You know that people have different personalities. And so you're going to be running into them, though, as you're dealing with clients. It's good to be aware for communicating with them. So hopefully this has piqued your interest on understanding personalities. If you're not one of those people already who likes to explore personality types, maybe you're a little more curious now. But this is just something that I've always been really into. I remember back in college before 9/11, we would go to the airport and just sit and watch people. And I love to see people interact and try to understand their story and, what kind of relationship do these people have, just based on watching them and observing human interaction. And I learn a lot that way by watching people. So that's understanding personalities in a nutshell and why it's important. And hopefully that'll give you a leg up when you're starting your career to really communicate well with your clients and trades and anyone that you might be working with. So there you have it, all the lowdown on personalities. at least from what I consider to be important. And if you have other personality tests that you've taken or you really enjoy and want to share what your personality type is with me, I would love for you to slide into my DMs and let me know which one you've taken and what is your personality type, because I am just curious about everybody. So I hope you found that enjoyable. Again, you can find all the links for everything that I mentioned, the websites as well as the book, in the show notes, and I hope to see you in my design mentor. I'd love to talk with you more about dealing with clients and starting your business and how to be an interior designer in that program. Also, don't forget to take advantage of that offer Erica Sorit has for her brand storytelling masterclass. Go ahead and leave me a review on Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. Screenshot that review and send it to me so that you can get that code to take this really amazing masterclass you're going to want for your business. So next week, we're going to have another great interview in our summer series. We're going to have one extra interview per month during the summer. So June, July, and August, we're going to have 3 interviews instead of 2, just because I have so many that I've done. I really want to get them out to you more quickly than I've been able to. Typically, I have like a 3-month lead time once I interview someone before it can get published, because I have so many people that I've interviewed and just the lineup is taking a while for them to get out. And so I'd love to have you guys hear these great interviews more quickly. So that's why I'm doing the summer series. So you've got some great interviews coming up. So stick around for that. And until then, when we see you next week, stay creative and curious. Thanks for listening. If you love this episode, please leave a rating and a review. This helps me reach other curious creatives like you. If you have a topic request or would like to contact me, simply head over to my website, rwarddesign.com, or email me at podcast@rwarddesign.com.